Hey there, welcome to Professor Purl, a YouTube channel about knitting. I'm Nicole and this is episode 48. And I'm on my porch again. It's been a while. It's still winter. It's not spring yet, but it feels like spring. It's like that fake spring. I live in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and so let me know if you're experiencing spring, but it's like almost 60 degrees Fahrenheit here. It's sunny. I had to be on the porch today. My kindergartner, Matilda, is down below. If you hear some noise in the background, she's roller skating or trying to learn to roller skate. Anyway, I'm just feeling spring, and I feel like when that happens, I want to cast something new on. I don't know if you feel that way when it's like a new season that you want to cast something new on. And so I want to knit something spring. I don't know if it's like I need to cast something on with spring colors or knit something for summer. I don't know, but I want to start another new project, which if you are a longtime viewer here, you know that I just like to start things a lot. So anyway, I do have a finished object. I sometimes finish things. This is a knitting channel where I sometimes finish things. Everything that I will talk about today will be listed in the description box below this video, links, all that. Okay, there's one finished object, and that finished object is my love note. Okay, so the yarn that I used for this was yarn from Arkansas Yarn Company. I used to get for over a year, maybe a year and a half. I got the Sock Yarn Society box, and I have a lot of single skeins of Arkansas Yarn Company yarn now, and they're awesome. And so what I did is I found two skeins that were different, but like looked like they would kind of melt together. And I paired it with some Knit Picks mohair, just like they're white. And yeah, so I faded it. The other modification, you can probably see this no lace. The other modification I did is I added some short rows to the back of the neck to make a higher neck. You probably really can't tell that much. I can see this. This is my 7th love note, so I can see a subtle change to, I think I added 6 rows of short rows. I just love this so much. This is my first time wearing it. I couldn't love this more. So there was a little bit of drama with this the last time I recorded, which is, it was my first time like trying out the idea of taking 2 skeins from my collection and fading them, and I ran out of yarn. So I thought I was using the very first color. This is like kind of a rainbow one. And then the second color was, I think this one, the rainbow one was March, and then this one was April. And so there was one that was like very rainbow, and then another one that had like pinks and yellows and just subtle speckles. And I thought, okay, these will fade really nice together. And so I felt like I was using more of the rainbow yarn. And so after I split for sleeves, I started fading between the rainbow one and the one that had more white for about 3 inches, probably about right here. And then I went to this color that had more white space. And I really thought I was using more of the rainbow yarn, but I wasn't. I actually used up all of this yarn and actually have quite a bit of this rainbow yarn left. And so what ended up happening, which I described last episode, is on one of the sleeves, I ran out of yarn. I had 8 rows left, and I ran out. I think this is the one I did, and this is the one I ran out on. And I was kind of sad about it, and I was traveling, so I had to put it aside. I posted on social media about it, and my friend Lindsay from Always Yarn First, she offered to send me her leftovers, but her leftovers are in the sparkle base, and I think this base is Yummy Plush, so it's not sparkle. So that would have worked, but I would have then had like a little this is the sleeve. I would have had a little sparkle. Lori from Arkansas Yarn Company also messaged me that she would send me a full skein. But it just felt kind of like a waste to have a full skein when it was just 8 rows. So my solution, which I think worked out really well, was in my collection I had another Arkansas Yarn Company skein that was called like Louis V or something like this, and it had a lot of white space as well, and then it had like speckles. They were green and purple, and I found a section of it that had light speckling, and I used that to finish the 8 rows. And so you can see like there's like a little green and blue speckle, which I don't have on this side. But I mean, you can't really tell. I mean, I know my husband Kyle said he could tell which sleeve I used the last 8 rows of from the other yarn, but you can't tell it. And it doesn't make me love it less. In fact, it makes me love it more in a way because it's got a fun story, and I just love this. And I love the idea that I just took 2 skeins from my collection, kind of melted them and made it cohesive with the same kind of mohair. I'm gonna stand up and show you too one more time because it's like my favorite love note. I mean, oh my gosh, I just love it. And I've, like I said, not just from Arkansas Yarn Company, but like yarn festivals. Are you like this? Let me know. Do you just like think it's so beautiful? I feel like the skeins of yarn we have, here's an example of one I'll talk about soon, they're just like works of art, and I just have to have these single skeins. And so now I have lots of single skeins, but I like to knit garments. And so what's a garment knitter to do? I love this idea of fading them, like picking 2 and fading them. And so I'm going to do this again for sure. So 7th love note, of my 7 love notes, one of them was for my daughter Matilda, and another one I don't really like her wear. I don't know what to do with a sweater that I don't like her wear. Let me know if you have a suggestion for that. But I don't like the color on me. I don't really like the fit. Anyway, that's a different topic, I guess, off track. But so of those 7 love notes, one I don't wear and one is for my daughter. So I really only have 5. So I'm not quite to the point where I could wear a love note every single day of the week, but I do want to get there. My goal is someday, not today, but someday to say I've knit 10 love notes. And after that, I want to pick like another sweater and knit a bunch of those. I just think it's fun to use it as a recipe and just play. Like, I really love that. Pun intended with love note. Anyway, so for 3 years in a row, I've hosted a love note, love Makealong in the fall, usually like, well, the 3 times it's been October 1st to December 1st. So I definitely am going to do that again. Nothing like futuristic knit along plans here. But my plan is I want to knit an all over suri one, like where I hold 2 strands of suri and I knit the lace and knit it short sleeves. So that's one of the goals. And I don't have the yarn for that. So I don't even know. If I'm ever at a yarn event, a yarn store, and I just see the perfect suri, like that is short sleeve, 2 strands of suri. It'll have a totally different drape, and I'm really excited about that idea. And the other love note that I want to make is another one of these where it's like no lace, and I'm picking 2 skeins from my collection and fading them. I'm totally going to do that again. And maybe not just for a love note. I was thinking I would love to do that for a lento, or if you have a sweater pattern you think would be really fun for me to like fade 2 of my skeins of yarn in, that's like the lento or the love note, let me know. So anyway, only one finished object, but I love it. I paired it with these earrings that are from a local maker to me. Well, she actually used to live like really like in my town or near my town, but then she moved to the coast, but she still comes out here for events, and I'll link her below. But her handle on Instagram is Made by Mika, and she just makes these like really, really, really fun earrings. I probably have 20 of them. I feel like I always want to cast things on, always. But when it's sunny out and the weather's getting better, it's like I want to cast on more things. And it's just so funny because I have so many whips. I'm only going to share the works in progress today that I've been working on since I last recorded, but there's 4 of them. I've been working on 4 things, and I'm so proud of it, and I'm so excited. I'm loving all these projects. So I'll start with the thing I worked on the most. Okay, side note, this was a shopping bag from Flock, and now it's like basically my Musselburgh hat bag. So I got this from the Fangirl Fibers and Pacific Knit Co. booth at Flock, and how fun. It says, in my defense, I was left unsupervised and the yarn festival was open, and I knit my daughter Matilda Musselburgh out of it, and I left all the supplies in there. And so then when I cast on my next Musselburgh, I had all the supplies in there. So I cast this Musselburgh on as part of a knit along with the We Share Needles podcast. Kristen and Maddie came up with the idea of knitting Musselburgh themed with a book you've read, and I love reading, and I loved that idea. I just think it's the best idea, and so I had to do it. I knew I wouldn't finish it in their timeline because I'm a slow knitter, but so I picked this color because it's violet, and I am obsessed with the Fourth Wing series. I've read Fourth Wing multiple times now. I'm almost done with Iron Flame. I'll talk about that in the personal section when I talk about my reading, but one of the main characters is Violet, so I knew I wanted to pick a violet yarn. So that's why I picked this color. I got this at the Flock Fiber Festival, and it's from Porter Wool Company, and I actually got to have like dinner and drinks with the dyer, and she was so nice. Her husband was there too. I didn't really chat with him, but anyway, this color is called Flock Party, and it's a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. It's 463 yards, which according to the pattern, I should have probably used this all up by now. But have plenty of yarn. I'm probably gonna have yarn left over. So I knit for the Musselburgh, I knit it the children's size or the adult size small because of my circumference of my head, and that's what fits me well. And look how much progress I've made. It's just so giant. I love this yarn so much. Let me have a loose stitch marker here. Okay. What I love about this yarn is that the flecks actually glow in person. I don't think they are doing that on the screen, but like there's hot pink flecks and purple flecks. The background is this like purple and pale. This is like a pale pink tonal, but to me in person, some of these flecks, like there's like a yellow fleck here. Like, yeah, it's not showing up. It just looks yellow there. But to me, it actually glows. It's like fluorescent. I feel like this is the kind of hat that would be like epic under blue light. Anyway, so long. When I last recorded, I was here. So I showed this much on my last episode. And then from here to here, these stitch markers, look at those cute little sheepies. These are from Twin Mountain Handcrafts. And these sheeps were from the Sacred Sheep Yarn Festival. So cute. Side note, I'll talk about the Bouclé Makealong going on, but Twin Mountain Handcrafts has donated prizes, $30 gift card, I think, which can get you a lot of cute stitch markers. Anyway, so this amount in here, from here to here, I did when I was traveling. I had to go to Florida, and I had a conference and some presentations and things. I'll talk about that more in the personal section, but not a lot of knitting was done, but that much was done, and I'm pretty proud of that. And then since I got back from Florida and to now when I'm recording here, so I feel like that's a lot for me. And for my size, it says to knit a length of 18.75 inches, which I've totally hit already. So I should technically be decreasing. But Maddie and Kristen from the We Share Needles podcast, if you watch them, you probably watch them, they have knit hundreds of these. I mean, that sounds like hyperbole, but it actually, between the two of them, they probably have knit hundreds of these. And they use up all their yarn. And I messaged them yesterday, and Kristen said that she goes until because she tries to use it all up. She says, and she thinks that the decreases use less yarn than the increases. And she said that she goes until there's 10 grams left. My situation is, though, and I don't know if it's because I'm knitting the child size or the size small. I don't know if that's what it is, or maybe it's just my gauge, or maybe it's just this yarn. But my challenge is it's getting pretty long, and you don't want, like, I don't want like a super tall hat. So I think I'm going to maybe not use it all. I think what I'm going to do is maybe measure it, and when I get to 20 inches, start the decreases, because it's getting to a point where I feel like it's like long enough for a hat because this will fold in on itself. And so yeah, so I'm gonna go a bit more. I think I weighed it this morning and I had 28 grams, and so if I waited until 10 grams were left, that would be almost like 18 grams, almost 20 grams, like just like it's like a mini skein. I don't know, just gonna go a little bit further. We'll see. So I'm excited about it because I feel like the next time I record, I will have another hat. This was so enjoyable for me to knit, just like the way my life is going right now. It's like busy professionally, it's busy as a mom. It's just a busy season, and there's a lot of travel, not just like for myself, but also like taking my kindergartner around, and like having this just to grab and knit round and round. Like, it's so satisfying to be able to knit in my busy parts of my day. Like, sometimes there's not a lot of time in a day to knit, and so to be able to sneak in those stitches on an easy project, it makes me realize why people knit socks as much as they do. I'm not a prolific sock knitter, but I totally resonate with this idea of like just something little to bring with you. It's been very satisfying, to the point that as soon as this is done, I'm either going to cast on another one of these, either for Matilda or Kyle, or I'm going to cast on like a tank top or something that is also just round and round and like can be easily portable. I was thinking about a Jessie made little tank top or something. I've only knit one tank top. Last year was my first year, and I had a tank top along in the summer, and it motivated me to finally knit my first tank top, and I love it. And I definitely, finding like a one skein sort of tank top might be, that's kind of tight fitting, I might really enjoy doing. So I mean, they're going to do that or another Musselburgh. Going in order of like the things I've spent the most time on. So I honestly have just knit the Musselburgh the most. It's had my most attention. But the next thing that's had my attention has been my Heirloom quilt cardigan by Catherine Seeberger. So in December, I did Vlogmas and I opened up some advents, and one of my advents was from Chelsea Yarns. It was New York themed, and I had a sparkle base. I loved it, and I'm deciding to use that in an Heirloom quilt cardigan. I think the last time I recorded, I had a dozen rectangles made, and I've finished 3 more rectangles. So I have 15 rectangles. Basically, there's going to be 2 panels of 6 rectangles and 6 rectangles, so that's 12. So those are all done. And now I've started the back rectangles, and I need 15. And so basically I am 15 out of my 27 rectangles. So I'm over the halfway point. Still have 12 more to go. So I'm just taking it slowly. So here's one of my rectangles. Look at that. Oh, the glitter is not showing up. Hold on. Let's see here. I don't know. Yeah, the glitter is not showing up, but it's beautiful. So the one thing I discovered through using mini skeins for this, the pattern was not designed for mini skeins, but you totally can, is that one mini skein does, you hold your yarn double if it's fingering, and one mini skein does the inside star and this background color. So then it's been a nice, it didn't find this flow right away, but now that I found it, I love it. So I basically will like, I'd already used this purple on a different one, so then it became my background color. Then I found a star color, then used that, and then used that my background, then found another color, which is this green, and then I did the green, and then found the inside, and I just keep going like that. It's been a really nice flow. I think when I will arrange these, for instance, I won't put these ones next to each other. These, like, that have the same colors. Like, these will end up in different spots. I mean, I would be probably okay with like that, but I want them kind of not lined up. But it's been a nice flow for using up the yarn. And then once I do the background and the inside star with a mini skein, I have about 5 grams left, and I'm like treasuring this Advent yarn, and so I've been winding that up into a tiny little ball, and I hope to make like maybe a magic knot ball out of my Chelsea yarns Advent yarn with maybe some other leftover Advent yarn and make something cool. We'll see, but I'll talk more about that later, I think. Will I ever sew these together? I don't know. I really hope so, because I think the end product is going to be absolutely epic and funky. Just, can you picture? I can just totally see myself wearing this. So it's going to be 2 across and 3 down. I can totally see this, and it's going to be really cool. And the Advent came with this like old, what does it say? Big Chelsea tote. Okay, so I'm going to share just like a little bit more about it. So this is from Chelsea Yarns. It's not a glitter base, and it did not come with the Advent. I bought it separate. And there's a hair. And this is Gold Coast, also not glitter, also didn't come with the Advent, bought it separate. This was the main skein that was like I Love New York. It is glitter, and it did come. And so my plan is that one of the sleeves of the cardigan is going to be this, one of the sleeves of the cardigan is going to be the Gold Coast, and then this will be the ribbing. It's going to be so funky. That's why I wanted to show you that. In the best way. And I actually did block these, so I haven't been blocking them. I've just been knitting them and not blocking, and I started to have the realization that I should kind of block these as I go and kind of catch up on blocking, because I can see it being very tedious to block otherwise, and I want to sew these together. That's which is why I've left long pieces of yarn so I can use these to sew together. So I think my plan, in addition to keep going with this, is to start blocking some of these. So yeah, this is getting kind of fiddly, sorry. So much joy, but if I'm being like realistic, I think I unrealistically wanted to finish it for the Rose City Yarn Crawl, which is in March, like the first week in March, and maybe that's all I did and nothing else, which I know myself that's not going to happen. So I think what's more realistic for me is to try to finish it by the end of summer, early fall, so I can have it like a jacket. And so it's going to be on the channel for a while, these little updates about the Heirloom quilt cardigan. And I don't know, it's also very satisfying. You feel like you're finishing something even though you're not, like, but it's like you're finishing a little rectangle, and it feels really satisfying. Maybe this is how blanket people feel. I'm not a blanket maker, but people that crochet granny squares, maybe that's how they feel. I am co-hosting a Bouclé Makealong with Emily, who is the botanical knitter on Instagram and YouTube, and we cast on February 1st, and it goes until April 10th, so it's not too late to join in. So I thought I'd give you some of my like Bouclé updates. Okay, my first Bouclé update. I'm so proud of myself. About a year ago, I knit the pieces for a belt bag. I think from Joan Ho is the designer. So this is one of the pieces. Like, so the zipper will go in here. There's a stockinette, but that's the inside. As you can see, I held a lot of yarn together from summer camp fibers. I held 2, you could use a thicker DK. It's probably, you could use a thicker Bouclé, but I think it's designed into the pattern with the thick Bouclé, but you can hold 2 strands of a thinner Bouclé and it'll work. And then I held it with a strand of worsted and then held it with a strand of sparkle. So yeah, so I knit the pieces and they just languished because I'm really bad about like getting over those like hurdles. Let me know if you have a knitting hurdle. Sewing is mine. So last Thursday, just a few days ago, I put a message out on Instagram and I was like, does anybody want to Zoom? And during that whole Zoom, so an hour and a half, so that it's kind of ridiculous how slow, but I wanted to make sure, it's kind of ridiculous how slow it took me to sew this, but I sewed the bottom to one of the sides and I'm so proud of myself. So basically I just need to sew this side on. I might need to have another Zoom. I like went on to Instagram and I was like, finish it February, do you have a hurdle? And my friend Hannah, who lives in Sydney, Australia, she was like doing afterthought pockets. You know, those things that like kind of sometimes you need a little motivation for. So at the bottom, this base is like double knit. I don't know. I think it's going to be, oh my gosh, you can tell I definitely have an aesthetic here. Rainbow speckle. That would be so cool to finish this. I know that if I finish this belt bag, I'm going to wear it and love it. It's so good. Do I have any in the, yeah, I have like rose gold. Like, it's going to be cool. I just need to do it. But I have taken it out of hibernation. Progress has been made. Thanks to the Bouclé Makealong for motivation, as well as friends that hopped on Zoom with me. So thank you. Okay. The other thing I've been working on, not a lot, but a little bit. And the reason why I haven't worked on a lot is I've had a lot of travel, which I will talk about in the personal section, but big, bulky, super bulky sweaters are not super travel friendly for me. So yeah, this yarn is Chester from Valley Yarns. Shayla from Black Pearl Magic introduced me to this glorious yarn and it was on sale when she did so. So I'm knitting a lime sweater. I would like, pink is my favorite color. I would like to knit a pink one. Does anybody know somebody from Webb's or Valley Yarn? Tell them they need a pink one. Like any pink, pale pink, hot pink, neon pink, lipstick pink. But lime it is. So, okay. I don't remember where I was last episode. I will put a progress keeper in moving forward so I can remember. But I've cast on, this is the back, and I did short row shaping and finished the back. And then I needed to pick up stitches, which I actually did this morning. The directions were like, count X amount. Let's just make up a number. 18. This is not the number. It's like count 18 stitches in and then pick up your stitches to the right. And I was like, hilarious, because this assumes you can see said stitches. So I was just winging it. Like, was I counting 18 stitches? I don't know. Did I even pick up a stitch? I picked up yarn. I mean, you cannot even see anything. And then it's like measure from like the seam. I don't even see the seam. Oh, I have not even mentioned what this sweater is. Sorry. This is the Sammal. I'll put the designer's name on the screen. It's Scandinavian, maybe it's Norwegian, and I don't know how to pronounce it. And I'll maybe type it into Google here soon and figure that out so I can. But yeah, so I basically do the back drop shoulder design. That's what I'm trying to say in a really awkward way. It's drop shoulder design. You pick up collar. You can pick up a collar and kind of make a collar to add a zipper. Of course, I'm picking the patterns that have hard things, like adding a zipper. Okay, this is very fun. Look at this squishy yarn. Oh, did I mention the fiber content of this yarn? It's so good. 30% superfine alpaca, 70% Highland wool. It's so soft and squishy. It's spring, so maybe you don't feel like knitting with super bulky yarn. I think what I'm realizing is like spring cast-ons can be, or projects can feel just bright. They don't necessarily need to be like a thin yarn. And so this, I don't know, I'm enjoying this a lot. I miss it when I'm away from it. I've had to go on 2 trips since I last recorded, and I've missed it. I've been thinking about it while away, which has been fun to be excited to come back to it. So I had my needles for a long, long time. I use Knit Picks needles. I got them for Christmas, the interchangeable set, when I was 24. And still, you know, I'm 40 now, so they've served me well. But I'm sharing that I think I might need to buy a new tip, or it's like starting to separate here. And that's kind of a challenge with knitting. That's just a personal, like, that's nothing to do with the pattern or the yarn. So I don't know if I'll finish this by the end of our Makealong because of all the travel I have going on. And the other hurdle is that the pattern requires you to have a fingering weight yarn for the cuffs and the bottom, and I don't have that yet. So it's hard to buy stuff online too, because what if it looks like it matches and then it doesn't? If you have any leads on a fingering weight lime that you think would look really good with this, let me know. My other plan, if I don't get any leads, is to bring this with me on the Rose City Yarn Crawl, which is the first weekend in March. Like, just carry this with me, and if I see a lime yarn, like, hold it up and try to find a fingering weight yarn. And in the meantime, just keep persevering through this whip. We are to the sip knit section of the episode. We haven't done one of these in a long time, so make sure you have something to drink. Make sure if you're knitting. And sip knit today is just gonna be me answering questions from Instagram. Okay, the first question is from Kristen, Crafty Kristen J, here on YouTube, half of the We Share Needles podcast. Side note, love Kristen so much. Okay, so she wants to know what's in the Dutch. I should know because I'm drinking it. It's pink, so that's why I got it. I really don't know. I do know it has white coffee. I don't even know what white coffee is, but I do like it. It's delicious. I've mostly had it hot. And it has raspberry in it. It truly tastes like maybe white chocolate. I don't know what's in it. I should Google it. It's called the Dutch Love. I mean, Kristen, she lives in Arkansas, but I think, like, I don't know if she grew up in the LA area or lived in California, but she knows about the Dutch Bros. Not everybody does, but she knows. Let me know if you know. Actually, one time I sent her a bunch of, like, Dutch Bros stickers. I was like, you know about Dutch Bros. Okay, I'm gonna do some knitting so we've sipped. Now we can knit. Okay, so Stacy, who's new knits, she's another of my Instagram friends. I've never met her in person. I don't think I've met her in person, but we do chat on Instagram. She goes, will it be blue nails from now on? Okay. Yeah, we were chatting about our nail situation the other day. So you may not know this about me, but I pretty much only paint my nails pink or glitter, or hopefully pink and glitter, but it's either like neon pink or pale pink or pink glitter. If I'm stepping outside the box, maybe like a silver glitter, honestly, but it's just mostly pink. And so that I keep looking at my hands and feeling like these are not my hands. So why did I paint my nails blue? I'll share more about it in the personal section, but the quick part is that Matilda swam at the 10 and under state swim meet, and Matilda's my kindergartner, and she loves swimming, and her team is the Sharks, and their colors are blue and yellow. I thought about painting my nails yellow, but I went with the blue. And I feel like that's her perfect swim team color, so that was in honor of her. My nail woman is on vacation in Belize for like 2.5 weeks, so these blue nails are gonna be around for a while. I'm getting pink next. Okay, Crafty Christina wrote, I love her at her podcast too, just side note, here on YouTube, so you should check her out if you haven't. She's so cute. When does your new employee start? So Christina's like so funny that I'm like, is this a joke I don't know? Or is she just like, she confused me with somebody else? I don't have an employee. I would love to have an employee. If I had an employee, what would I have them do? I think I would have them sew together the pieces of my fanny pack and check my email. Okay, Biology 503 says, why did you become a math professor? Like, it's gonna sound so cheesy, but I feel like it's like what I was destined to do, and that there is like no other career for me other than, I just really can't imagine doing anything else, and I feel like I've truly found the perfect thing. I love math so much. I also love helping others have a fun time with math. I think a lot of people have had bad experiences with math, and I love just deeply like shifting that perspective. I think everybody can do math, and I think everybody has brilliant ideas, and I love helping people step into their brilliance, every single student. And my goal, as cheesy as it sounds, is like to have students like their favorite class be my class, because that means that they feel safe and comfortable if it's like their favorite class. And I also love to help them like either extend their really good relationships with mathematics or create new relationships that are positive. I will quit rambling about math, but I really love that part of it. I was a high school math teacher from 2005 to 2010, and it was really intense work. It's very, very hard work. I respect teachers so much, and I'm glad that I was a public school teacher for 5 years, but I also like, for my personality, like it wasn't sustainable for me to do that long term. I was working like 12, 16-hour days. I would go to bed at like midnight, 1 a.m., get up at 4 a.m. I didn't have a family at the time. And so finding a professor in academia is more sustainable for me. It's like a balance of getting to hang out with people and teach them, and also like getting some alone time. I really have an introverted side that really likes to like study and cozy and think. And so as a professor, like, you know, I get to like teach math, but also be alone in my own thoughts. And I love the research side of being a professor too. I love doing studies. I love writing articles. Like, I wouldn't want to just do research, but I also wouldn't want to just teach either. And so I truly feel like I have the best job. I also love the ecology of a university. Like, it's just a really cool place to see people like living on campus, and like the vibrancy of that sort of life. Like, for instance, last night I played the clarinet in my university's orchestra, and like there's this stuff that happens at the university, like orchestra concerts and political talks, and I love all that. So yeah, I'm so blessed, and I love my job so much. Okay, Melissa from Stitches Be Slippin', she says, what's your favorite color? She knows. She's just, I think, you know, she was kidding. She was teasing me. We all know it's pink. Tell me what your favorite color is. I would love to know. Like, is it pink? It should be. Since I last recorded, I have some acquisitions. One of my acquisitions was a Xaden Ryerson surprise box, Valentine's Day box from Fangirl Fibers. So it came with this bag. This is probably thinking about Xaden Ryerson, and it came with this metal bookmark with a picture of Xaden on it, and it's kind of metal. Mine's kind of scratchy on the sides, so I actually don't know how much I'm going to use the bookmark or the bag, but who cares, because the yarn, and give the candle too that I love. That's actually in my house burning. Well, not burning right now, but like I'm using the candle. Love it. The yarn and the stitch markers like are so good. I'm so excited about it and really glad I got it a lot. Okay, so this is like a black blue, like so good. Like in some light it looks like almost black, and then in the sun like this you can see that it's navy blue. Oh, and it's called Dagger Tail Dragon. Love that. And then this colorway is called Shadow Daddy. And it's an 80-20 base, so 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. Oh, my nails match it. Okay, and then these stitch markers came with it. A Zadie's Girl, Be My Wing Leader, Shadow Daddy. I'm obsessed. So my plan with these, I think, is I'm going to make Kyle a Musselburgh that's half this color and half this color. I don't think I'm going to do it exactly half and half. I was thinking maybe like 3/4 and 1/4. So like basically you could wear it so it's like a solid color, like maybe this, like a solid navy. Or you could wear it funky where it like this is like the top and then you fold it and then that's the brim maybe. Or vice versa. So I'm thinking that's what I'm going to do. Initially, I thought I wanted to do like a faded sweater situation like this because I knew it was going to be 2 different skeins. And so that's also a possibility if I buy some mohair that would go with this, like maybe a black or maybe like a light gray for some contrast. I don't know. So trying to decide. But Kyle seems to really like these colors, so I'm thinking I might do him a Musselburgh, and I don't knit for him very often, so it might be nice to do, instead of a sweater, like a smaller project for him. So I could use these with it, and I'm just gonna love my life. It's gonna be great. Okay, so that was really fun, and it arrived on Valentine's Day too, so that was super fun. A couple days after Valentine's Day, I got a Galentine's Day present from one of my friends with this donut card. And basically it was for my friend Jordan, and she was buying her wedding dress, and next to the wedding dress shop was a yarn store, and she went into there and they had these national park kits. So she lives in Seattle, and so I assume the wedding dress place she went to is somewhere in Seattle. And so there's the yarn's all kind of wound up, and then this is the hat pattern. You can buy the hat pattern on Ravelry, says her letter. I was actually at my library and there was a book that was like knitting the national parks by Nancy Bates. I think it's the same book. So I'm gonna go back to my library and look and see if it's in there. But if it is, I have the yarn, and there's a little tag so you can make it a cutie like this. So yeah, and I love it Jordan picked this because she said it was the only Oregon National Park that was at the yarn store, and I love Crater Lake National Park. Our family went there when Matilda was, I think, 2.5, so I'm sure Matilda doesn't remember it, but we had the best time, and it was so beautiful. If I remember or I can find them, I'll be hopefully popping in some Crater Lake National Park pictures here. It is just one of the prettiest places I've ever been to. So it's nice. It was just such a nice surprise. We don't normally exchange Valentines, Jordan and I, so it was like just such a surprise. Okay, so I started chatting with Erica, who's half of the Twin Ora podcast on YouTube, Twin Ora Nits. It's Jess and Erica, and I started chatting with Erica on Instagram because of a color play sweater that she was knitting in the similar yarn that I'm knitting. We were both doing it in Chelsea Yarns 2022 Advent, and she actually finished hers and I have not. But goals. As soon as I finish the Heirloom, I think I'm going to pull that one out. Anyway, we were chatting, and that's when I discovered that she has a podcast, and it's amazing. Her and her sister are like artists, and they really play with color and do just like really cool things. You should check them out. And one of the things on their episodes that they regularly talk about is this book called Close Knits. And they just talked about it one too many times, so I've ended up getting it. Okay, I haven't read a bit out of it. When it showed up, my husband was like teasing me. He was like, "Oh, okay, you're gonna be knitting like a loopy sweater," and I mean, maybe someday, not today, but yeah, I'll just open it up. You can see like there's all these like just fun and funky things. But one of the things that Erica and Jess talk about on their episodes is like how wonderful this book is and how inspirational it's been to them to try new things. And they've knit some of the sweaters out of here. I'll just put up a picture of one of the sweaters. So it's definitely a book that's about like playing with color. And on the last episode they showed, maybe this is the sweater that they did. And theirs had like more pinks instead of greens, and this giant neck. I think it was Jess that knit it, and then Erica was wearing it. I think it's just so I haven't read it yet, but oh yeah, so here there's just like the same sweater in multiple. You can see like all the scraps, and I think that's when I'm finishing this Heirloom cardigan. I'm talking about making a magic ball, or maybe not. Maybe I'll read a different technique in here, but I'm thinking about like using all my little 5-gram bits with some of my leftover bits from my stress knits events in years prior to do a sweater like this. And you can see that there's like this like kind of like just like not just marling, but like just different types of fiber. Like there's these like mohair bits, and then looks like that's like thicker, and then maybe like some fingering. So I'm just really excited to read through this, and there's definitely some like recipe patterns in here. I don't have like the best history with like actually using patterns in the book. Like I don't, but I'm hopeful that I will here in this case, because I do really like the patterns in here. So look at this one. This is really cool. So yeah, I'm really excited to spend this weekend flipping through this, laying on my couch, knitting. Oh yeah, there's even like a scrunchie pattern. I'm just really excited about this. Yeah, so thanks for influencing me if you watch the podcast, Jess and Erica. We are to the personal section of the episode. This is where the knitting talk stops and I just chat about my life. I'll just maybe knit while I chat about my life here. And yeah, so thanks for being here. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and just chat about my life, I guess. So, okay, so what have I been reading? Since I last recorded, I finished reading 2 books, and I'm almost done with my 3rd book. So the first book I finished reading is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. And I love fiction books that switch between 2 different perspectives. I know that's a style of writing that's very common in fiction books, and there's certain ways to do that I resonate with more than others. I will say this was a novel switch of perspective, which is the perspective switch was between a human and an octopus, and oh my goodness, like, so good. I shouldn't just say the perspective switch was between a human and an octopus, but between humans and an octopus. And it was just well done, just so well done. And I would highly recommend it. And I think I read on my library's website, like, that this book is recommended for people who like the book A Man Called Uva by Frederick Bachman, which my husband and I read that book together, and I loved that book a lot. It's a different like a totally different narrative, but I can see how that people that would like that book, A Man Called Uva, would also like Remarkably Bright Creatures. It was a very good story. I also read Happy Place by Emily Henry. So I've officially read like the Emily Henry books, like Book Lovers, Beach Read, People We've Met on Vacation, and now this one, Happy Place. And I'm really excited about that because I like her style of writing a lot. And there's another book coming out, I think in April, called Funny Stories. So I feel like caught up, and I can like anticipate a book that's coming out. So that's always fun. I think what I like about Emily Henry's writing is I need light and fluffy reading sometimes. So she is a light and fluffy writer. Like, in my mind, it's like romancy, it's light, but also it's not. It's simultaneously light and fluffy and also not. Like, and it addresses like these big like kind of issues. So for instance, like, in Happy Place, the kind of main premise is like what happens when your relationships from your 20s change, right? Like when you're in your 30s and your 40s, like you're no longer in your 20s. Like, what happens to those relationships, those friendships? Like, how do they evolve? How do they change when life happens? And it's just this, she tackles beautiful issues, and while simultaneously writing in a very digestible, light and fluffy way that you might need. And so, yeah, I definitely cried. However, I will say I did not rate it a 5-star on Goodreads, and I think my hesitation for it was parts of it felt very unbelievable to me, like, and like actually parts of it felt so unbelievable that like this like book, Remarkably Bright Creatures, like it was more believable to me. Like, hearing the thoughts of an octopus felt more believable than parts of A Happy Place to me. But that, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because that's okay. Like, it was just that was my hesitation for giving it a 5-star review. So yeah, those were my 2 books I finished since I last recorded, and I've been just savoring and slowly reading Iron Flame, which is the 2nd book in the Fourth Wing series. It's so funny because I read Fourth Wing just so fast, and I read it a second time by listening to it. So I read a physical copy, and I've like listened to it, and both ways I consumed Fourth Wing very quickly, and then Iron Flame is just much slower for me. And it's not that it's not a good book. So much has happened in the book. I was my husband's reading it too, and he was telling me something, and it just felt like so long ago that I was thinking it was Fourth Wing, and I was like, oh no, that definitely happened in Iron Flame. Yeah, the book is, I think, 621 pages, and I'm somewhere in the early 500s. So I have basically like a little more than 100 pages to go. So maybe the next time I record, I will have finished it. But like, I'm not in a rush to finish it because it's like, I've been spoiled on Instagram to know this much, that it leaves you with a cliffhanger. And I think that's why I've been reading so slow, is I don't want it to end because I know the third book is not available yet. And I'm just like, and I love this world so much. I can always reread Iron Flame. As soon as Iron Flame's done, I'm going to start Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. I've actually already started the Crescent City series, and it was slow for me to get into, and then I got really into it, and then, I don't know, life happened, and I had to stop reading the book, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember being busy in a semester, and so I don't think I've mentioned this episode yet that I'm a math education professor. So if you're new here, that's how I got way to mention this at the end of the episode. But if you're new here, that's how my episodes got their name, Professor Purl, like, because I'm a math education professor that loves to knit. So, okay, on the note of being a math education professor, I had a math education conference in Florida, and I had a lot of travel for that because Oregon to Orlando, Florida is no joke, like, of a travel within the continental US. It's quite a long flight within the continental US. And so, yeah, it took a big chunk of my time. I like to travel carry-on for conferences, and I think because as a mom, when I travel, I've got like all the things, like the car seat, like we're just like a circus. And so when I travel by myself, I just feel like almost liberated, like traveling light. And so because I like to travel carry on, particularly for my math conferences and things, I couldn't bring my sweaters with me. And so this is why I did so much on this, is it's just, this was easier to pack in my carry-on than my super bulky sweaters. So yeah, so I had 2 presentations. I met up with some colleagues. We played board games. It was a great time. It was nice to be in warmer weather because at that time it was very cold here in Oregon. And I did some fun things, like one of the days I went to Magic Kingdom in Disney World with my friends, and I have gone to Disney World with my husband and my daughter 3 times. Definitely associate Disney World with them. And so there was this part of me that was like really sad that I went without them. But the other part of me was like grateful that I made myself do it and hang out with my friends and enjoy it like as an adult with my friends. And so yeah, I had a really great time. I rode a ride called Tron, which last summer when Matilda and I went, Kyle did Tron and I was too scared to go on it. I didn't want to go on it. I don't really like scary rides. What I like about Disney is the storybook rides, the slow, peaceful rides. It's like who I am. I'm not like an adventure seeker. But my friends were like, oh, you do Space Mountain, you do Test Trackers rides, you can totally do Tron. And I believed them. And it was so terrifying. I was like, I wasn't even able to scream. I literally was just like, I couldn't even scream. I was so scared. But what's interesting, when they got off of it, I like wanted to get back on it. Like 10% of me. So anyway, Magic Kingdom was awesome. Then, okay, so that weekend after my conference was over, Matilda had a swim meet. It was the weekend before her state swim meet. And so the swim meet was called the Last Chance swim meet. Like, it's your last chance to qualify for state, essentially. And so I didn't want to miss it. So that Saturday became, the Saturday before her Sunday swim meet, became probably my craziest day, like in terms of like busyness that I've ever done. And I'm like kind of proud that I lived my best life. So what I did that Saturday is I gave a talk in the morning on productive struggle in math. And when the talk was over, so I went to the talk dressed in my Disney gear with my suitcase. And when the talk was over, I went to Epcot with my suitcase, and I left my suitcase in my friend's car. Did Epcot with my friends, or as much as Epcot as I had time for, I should say, and ate a lot of good food, ate some German food, had some snacks, and then I did the Frozen ride. That was my last ride. I sit in the front, got wet, so I had a wet butt, had my ears on, and my lift is coming to pick me up, but I'm like 10 minutes for my lift to pick me up, and I'm still on the Frozen ride. So I run from the Frozen ride to my lift, and then I get to the airport, fly home, get home pretty late, get to Portland about midnight. By the time I'm getting ready to go to bed, it's like 1 a.m. And then I get up at 5 a.m. for Matilda's swim meet, and I like did it all, and I'm just like, I don't know, I feel really proud of it, that I just like lived my best life. I did my math talk, I went to Disney, made it to Matilda's swim meet, like wild. I saw somebody at the conference, and I was telling them about my plan to do this, and they were like, I do not envy you. I'm like, okay. Like, yeah, being busy isn't for everybody, but I'm really glad. I mean, I wouldn't want a day like that every single day, but I'm glad I did it. And then weekend after that, we went to Eugene, Oregon, which is, it's an hour and 45 minutes from here where I live, but that's where the short course state championship swim meet was, and Matilda was swimming in 2 events at state, which is really cool. It's 10 and under state, and her 2 events were 8 and under relays, and she's 6, so we're just so proud of her that she went, and that that happened for her. I've never gone to state for anything. I couldn't be more proud of her. And yeah, so swim meets are wild, they're crazy, but state swim meets, wow, somehow even more crazy. Just, it's intense. They're just intense crowds. It's just loud, a lot of sensory. So definitely crashed. But we just made a whole big weekend of it. We, on the Friday of state, like that Friday night, I had mid-semester break from school. And so we went to Eugene on Friday, and then state swimming was Saturday and Sunday. And so we just stayed there the weekend. We went to a museum. We had some dim sum. Oh my gosh, the dim sum was so good. We had that the night before Matilda swam. Her 2 events she swam were on Sunday, and actually unfortunately for her events were the very first event on Sunday and the very last event on Sunday. So she was there the whole day. Parents aren't allowed by the children, and like Matilda's in kindergarten, and so I sent her with walkie-talkies, and but she just did really well. And so it wasn't like a far travel, but you know, still have to pack up the whole family, go. So again, I think I brought this sweater with me with intentions of finishing the sleeve through our travels, but the swim meets are so loud and hot and chaotic that I often don't knit at the swim meets. I will knit at Matilda's swim practice, but I don't really knit at the swim meets. I'm just sometimes just so like kind of overwhelmed by it all and hot that I just don't feel like knitting, which that just shows you how much a swim meet might be overwhelming, because I will knit anywhere. So if I'm not knitting at a swim meet, I feel like that says something about their intensity. So anyway, that's what I've been up to. I do have another trip coming up in March for work. I'm going to Ecuador, I think like the second week. I leave March 10th. So I hopefully will have another episode up before then. But we'll see. And I'm trying to record every 2 weeks, but it's just with the travel and life, it's been a little bit harder. And yeah, so my intent is to have another episode up before I leave for Ecuador, and I would like for this to be done and to have another travel project, because I'm going to Ecuador by myself, and I'm also wanting to go carry on. So I I don't know if that's a mistake, going to Ecuador carry-on. We'll see. I'm trying to be pretty minimalist on that trip too. And so, yeah, I want another project like this. If you have a suggestion for something that is like this, that's not a sock, because I don't think a sock, I don't feel like knitting a sock right now. Not a sock and not a Musselburgh, but like that kind of thing, I would love to know. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for being my knitting friend. And yeah, I hope you have a really great week. And, you know, I hope that if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you're getting like a little taste of spring like I am. It's really just brightening my mood. And yeah, so happy knitting. Bye.